All right, ladies and gentlemen, the police departments are now trying to get the residents to snitch on the drug dealers that are around them. And they're offering $500 in Warren. Warren offers $500 to residents to snitch on drug dealers. Okay, so what happens if that drug dealer or people associated with that drug dealer find out you snitched on them? Your life is over. Okay, for $500. And I don't trust anything that a cop says is confidential. I really don't. All right. Warren residents who tell police about drug dealers can receive $500 for information leading to arrest, the city announced Wednesday. The program means all Warren residents will be the eyes and ears in our war against drug pushers. Warren Mayor Jim Faust said in a news release, the program called People Against Illegal Drugs, PAID, of all things, right, offers rewards for confidential tips and cash rewards determined case by case. The information must lead to a search warrant and arrests involving illegal drug sales from a Warren resident, according to the news release. I don't trust cops. So why would I trust that they would keep my name confidential if I did tell you who a dealer was? Okay, moving on. Warren, Michigan, third largest city with an estimated 134,000 residents, went from 8 heroin deaths in 2015 to 32 in 2016. A 400% increase, Faust told the Free Press. This year, the number already reached 32 in August. I call Warren kind of ground zero when it comes to the opiate and heroin plague, he said. My position is that heroin is an illness, not a crime. That's why you're not going to resolve the issue. That's why you're not going to resolve it. He said that with Narcan, a drug that can reduce the effects of heroin overdoses, now issued to police officer, the city has been able to help save people's lives. People with a heroin addiction are encouraged to seek help at Warren police stations where they can be connected with counselors, Faust said. Meanwhile, he said police are pushing the people selling the drugs, pursuing the people selling the drugs, people with tips, and it just gives you the hotline number. I'm not going to get into that. Okay. So once again, no, to me, if you want to snitch on your local drug dealer, go ahead, but $500 is not worth me losing my life over. And number two, like I said, I don't trust that cops will keep anything confidential. I really don't. I really don't. I don't trust them at all. But tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. And if you can donate to my channel, please do. Peace, family. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an article that just came out in Life Science, October 6, 2017. San Diego hepatitis A issue is still spreading, everybody. They are not getting it under control. Now, over my last few videos that I did on this subject, what they did was put these hand washing machines on the street. But of course, it's not enough. They're going to have to try to find a way to clean the streets up and let these people shower. I'm serious. I think the hand washing is not enough. I mean, what's the point in hand washing if the rest of your body is completely filthy? It's got to go. Or you're wearing dirty clothes because you're homeless. How do you get it under control? Hepatitis A spreads through San Diego. Why is it so hard to stop? San Diego, more than 480 people have become infected with hepatitis A over the past 10 months, and a large outbreak of the illness in California in decades. But why is it so hard to stop? About 20 new cases of hepatitis A per week have been reported during this outbreak. Dr. Eric McDonald, director of San Diego County's Epidemiology and Immunization Services Branch, said at a news conference here yesterday, October 5th. Part of an infectious disease conference call, ID Week 2017, most of the hepatitis A cases have been among people who are homeless or use illegal drugs or have a close contact with those populations. Of the 481 people who have been infected, 337, 70%, have been hospitalized, and 17 have died, officials said. Dr. Monique Foster of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's Division of Viral Hepatitis says it is not uncommon for large hepatitis A outbreaks like this to last a long time, around 1 or 2 years before they are completely halted. The downside is, these homeless people, sometimes they don't stay in the same place for a long time. So it's easy for them to branch out in other areas, and then it begins to spread in other locations in California. Though the hepatitis A virus isn't typically deadly, it can affect the liver and cause inflammation and damage to the organ, according to the National Institutes of Health. Symptoms can include dark yellow urine, fever, joint pain, nausea, and vomiting. People with the infection usually get better on their own without treatment, the NIH says, but in some cases the infection can lead to liver failure, particularly in older adults or people who have other liver diseases. Hepatitis A spreads when small amounts of stool from an ill person contaminates objects like food or drink at another person that touches or ingests, and also sexual contact. It can spread that way as well. This can happen when people with the illness don't properly wash their hands after going to the bathroom, according to the CDC. In San Diego, officials have installed 66 portable hand washing machines in the streets to address the hygiene issue, with 100 more stations on the way. The virus can also spread among drug users, also through poor hygiene when sharing equipment related to illicit drug use, which they are doing. And this is why HIV is now spreading among drug users as well as hepatitis C. One reason specialists and doctors have a hard time stopping the spread of hepatitis A is it's a long incubation period. The time it takes a person to show symptoms after he or she is infected, which lasts on average 28 days, can be up to 50 days, Foster said. People infected today probably won't show symptoms for 4 weeks, Foster said. This makes it hard for people to recall what they were doing or who they had contact with at the time they were exposed to hepatitis, Foster said. And both of those factors help officials track and control outbreaks. It also means people don't yet appear sick. can infect others, causing more cases. And that's probably what's going on in San Diego right now, without a doubt. Another challenge in San Diego outbreak is the specific population at risk for contracting hepatitis A in this outbreak. People who are homeless or use illicit drugs. This is a population that has limited access to clean toilets and hand washing facilities, which are important to prevent the spread of hepatitis A. Additionally, vaccination, which I don't believe in. I don't believe in anything government wants to give you, especially if it's a free shot. With the hepatitis A vaccine is one of the key ways of prevent the infection. The CDC says, yeah, always some vaccine, which I don't trust any shots that the government gives. I just don't. It takes time to set up systems in order to deliver vaccines, McDonald said. I think those systems are now strongly in place here to address the ongoing outbreak. And then you have another issue, ladies and gentlemen, of the people even showing up for the shots. Being that homeless people move around, how do you track them down to even give them the shots if they're, a lot of times the police will run them out of a location, which means now they're infecting a whole different part of the city. In general, hepatitis A vaccine is recommended for children at age 1, which no. Okay, moving on. Prior to the San Diego outbreak, the hepatitis A vaccine was not specifically recommended for people who are homeless, but now the state of California is recommending that this vaccine be given to the homeless population. CDC officials will also consider whether this should become a national recommendation. Well, it can become one. I'm not taking no shot from no government. But ladies and gentlemen, please tell me what you think. Please leave your comment and subscribe. And if you can, make a donation to my channel, please do. Peace, family. Had asked me about how many people are hooked on illicit drugs and opioids. And this is a report that came out in the American Society of Addiction Medicine in 2016. It's always 1 year behind. So when 2018 comes, that's when you'll get the figures for 2017. Opioids are a class of drugs that include illicit drug heroin, as well as illicit prescription painkillers, oxycodone, hydrocodone, codeine, morphine, fentanyl, and others. Opioids are chemically related and interact with opioid receptors on nerve cells in the brain and nervous system to produce pleasurable effects and relieve pain. That's why so many people don't even want to get off. They will fight you before they get off of these drugs. I was reading heroin addicts said they love the high because they said it gives them that feeling like they are in love. And they love that feeling and they don't want to give it up. That's why so many of them fight when you suggest rehab to them. Addiction is a primary chronic and relapsing brain disease characterized by an individual pathologically pursuing reward and or relief by substance use and other behaviors. Of the 20.5 million Americans 12 or older had a substance abuse order in 2015. 2 million had a substance abuse disorder involving prescription pain relievers, and 591,000 had a substance abuse use disorder involving heroin. So when you add up all those figures, you have over 23 million people abusing drugs in the US. It's estimated that 23% of individuals who use heroin develop opioid addiction. Drug overdose is the leading cause of accidental death in the US, with 52,404 lethal drug overdoses in 2015. Opioid addiction is driving the epidemic, with 20,101 overdose deaths related to prescription pain relievers and 12,990 overdose deaths related to heroin in 2015. From 1999 to 2008, overdose death rates, sales, and substance use disorder treatment admissions related to prescription pain relievers increase in parallel. The overdose death rate in 2008 was nearly 4 times the 1999 rate. Sales of prescription pain relievers in 2010 were 4 times those in 1999, and the substance use disorder treatment admission rate in 2009 was 6 times the 1999 rate. In 2012, 259 million prescriptions were written for opioids, which is one than enough to give to every American adult their own bottle of pills. That's ridiculous. And America actually prescribes more than any other country on the entire planet. 4 in 5 new heroin users start out misusing prescription painkillers. 94% of respondents in a 2014 survey of people in treatment for opioid addiction said they chose to use heroin because prescription opioids were far more expensive and harder to obtain. Impact in special populations: adolescents 12 to 17 years old. In 2015, 276,000 adolescents were current non-medical users of pain relievers, with 122,000 having an addiction to prescription pain relievers. In 2015, an estimate of 21,000 adolescents had used heroin in the past year. An estimate of 5,000 were current heroin users. Additionally, an estimate of 6,000 adolescents had a heroin use disorder in 2014. People also share their unused pain relievers, unaware of the dangers of non-medical opioid use. Most adolescents who misuse prescription pain relievers are given them for free by a friend or relative. The prescribing rates for prescription opioids among adolescents and young adults nearly doubled from 1994 to 2007. Women are more likely to have chronic pain, be prescribed prescription pain relievers, be given higher doses, and use them for longer periods of time than men. Women may become dependent on prescription pain relievers more quickly than men. 48,000 women died of prescription pain reliever overdose between 1999 and 2010. All right. And I will leave the link to this article in the description box. All right, right here. Pain reliever overdose deaths among women increased more than 400% from 1999 to 2010, compared to 237% among men. Heroin overdose deaths among women have tripled in the last few years, from 2010 through 2013. Female heroin overdoses increased from 0.4 to 1.2 per 100,000. Okay, so over 23 million abusing opioids and heroin in the US. And this is why You don't see any end in sight. That's a lot of people. You know, as I had stated before, that's a whole nation of people when you really think about it. There are countries that have fewer people than that. So tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. I will leave the link to the article in the description box. Please leave your comment and subscribe. And if you can make a donation to my channel, please do. And I want to thank everyone that have made a donation over the past few weeks. I really deeply appreciate it. And I just want you to know that I think you are the greatest subscribers a person could ever have. And I really mean that. Peace, family. Ladies and gentlemen, please bear with me. I'm just battling with some allergy problems today, but I'm going to get through my videos the best that I can. Here's an article that came out October 4th, 2017 in the Washington Post, and I will leave the link to this article in the description box. Companies can't find workers to rebuild after Harvey and Irma. If you've been following my channel, and especially the drug news that I give, you know why this is happening. So let's get into this article. And the picture right here is actually Florida after Hurricane Irma. And you can see, the rubble and debris and the houses blown apart still down on the ground. After Hurricane Irma pounded the Florida Keys, flooding waterfront homes and shredding docks, Brett Ekblom phone kept ringing with homeowners desperate to rebuild, and fast. I'm hearing from people who have had quite a bit of destruction, said Ekblom, who owns Native Construction Contracting in Key Largo. On a typical day, he get one inquiry about a renovation. Now he's getting 4. But Ekblom is struggling to grow his staff of 20 who had a packed schedule before the storm hit the Keys and tossed seaweed everywhere. The chances of finding a skilled carpenter today, even with a Craigslist and ad offering higher than usual wages, slim to none, he said. From late August to mid-September, Hurricane Harvey and Irma destroyed properties across Texas and Florida, causing up to $200 billion in damages, according to an early estimate from Moody's Analytics. Maria brought further devastation, setting Puerto Rico's economy back decades. However, the island Commonwealth has 11.4% unemployment rate, which makes for a different labor situation. Economists fear the otherwise tight U.S. labor market could hold back reconstruction compared to previous disasters. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina brought about $108 billion in damages. Demand in New Orleans soared for carpenters, electricians, and plumbers. Immigrants flocked to the city for the blue-collar work. At the time, the country's unemployment rate was higher than 4.7% when Katrina struck, compared to today's 4.4%. More people were looking for jobs, particularly men. Male participation in the workforce was 73.3% in 2005, while today is 69.2%. Now listen to this, ladies and gentlemen, because this is why they're having a problem rebuilding. Opioid use now seen as a factor keeping men out of work, wasn't yet regarded as a national crisis, and immigration restrictions weren't as tight. That made it easier for construction firms to find laborers in a hurry when it came time to fix things up. So, because of the immigration situation in America and drugs, and we know the drug epidemic is off the charts, they are finding it hard to locate people to help rebuild. And it's not going to be just here, it's going to be in Puerto Rico too. Can you imagine that? They're having problems finding enough workers. And see, this also should shed light on how serious the drug problem is in America, where you got disasters that have taken place and there's not enough workers they can locate without a drug problem. What does that tell you? It tells you that not only is this a major drug problem, it's an economic problem. If you can't get everything rebuilt, then that lowers the economic in America if you can't get it all built. And I can tell you for a fact, they never even rebuilt parts of New Jersey after Hurricane Sandy. People never got their homes back. Never. But at the time, I did not put two and two together and realize they never could find enough workers to construct all those homes again. So they pretty much gave up. Okay, let's move on. In contrast, monthly job openings in the United States reach a record high this summer at 6.2 million. There were 6.2 million job openings in America they could not fill because people kept failing drug tests. Then came the hurricane season aftermath. Adding on to those vacancies in communities began to put themselves back together. Employers nationwide are complaining about a labor shortage, especially in traditionally male dominated fields such as manufacturing and construction. Business owners say a lack of skilled workers who can pass a drug test has stalled their growth. Ladies and gentlemen, just hold tight. I know, we talk about having our own and doing for ourselves, but let's be real, that still has not really happened in a big way. As time goes on, a lot of these business owners are going to come to the black community. You just watch. You just count on it. See, right now they are desperate to fill a lot of these jobs with white people, and they are simply not finding them because of the drug plague in the country. And they wanted to use immigrants. Okay, well, if we can't use white workers, we'll just get the next best thing, the immigrants. That ain't working out so well either. That's why these jobs are sitting there. If immigrants was the real answer to America's problem, you wouldn't hear a peep out of these people whining. The fact that they're whining is telling you immigrants ain't the answer either. They're going to come back to the original man and women of this country to fill these slots. Right now, they have too much pride to do it. I promise you, when they realize their businesses are going to sink, they ain't going to have no more problem with you. They'll choose money over falling over these drug addicts. Mark my word. You're going to see a major turnaround. Joe Brusulas, chief economic at RSM, said post-hurricane reconstruction will prove especially challenging because of the tight labor market. There is not a significant surplus of labor ready to re-enter the workforce to take relatively higher paying construction jobs that will be available in Houston and across much of Florida, he wrote in an analysis ahead of Friday's job report. While it's understandable that the focus is still on human costs to hurricanes in Texas, Florida, and the Caribbean U.S., the likely economic narrative going forward will be, where are all the workers necessary to rebuild? Charles Chuck Mason Jr., president of Mason Construction in Beaumont, Texas, said people are still trying to dry out their houses after Harvey. Starting work while the walls and floors are still damp, he explained, would seal in mold. You know, it would be nice if black men could come together at this very moment and form construction companies and go down in these areas where they need rebuilding. This is the time to seize that opportunity, especially for our black men. I think this would be phenomenal if you could get down there and show you got enough workers to get everything done. So church halls remain full of people sleeping on on donated mattresses. This is going to be the biggest demand probably ever in this area for housing trade, he said. And there's a severe shortage of qualified workers. You know what? There are no workers that can get it done better than black men. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's the truth. It's the truth. Houston, about 85 miles east of Beaumont, has swept up many of the area's craftsmen, he said. Mason Jr., 67, having trouble hiring just one more carpenter to help clean up the area's petroleum plants. He's looking for an extra 25. When you add in all the demand in Florida, there's going to be a shortage nationwide of people with those skills, he said. The labor shortage is already boosting salaries. Median pay for construction workers in the United States is 16 an hour, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Elblom, who runs the Key Largo construction company, said he's offering between 17 and 20 an hour. So, depending on experience, he's looking for at least 10 more workers. That's a shame. They're not even looking for that many, and they're struggling to find these people because they keep coming, the people that are coming forward are all junkies, and they don't want them. Many are still fixing their own homes. Elkblom cleared a tree off a neighbor's roof for free. Now his staff faces sand all over construction sites, tipped porta potties, flipped dumpsters, broken gates, trash roofs, and soaked basements. Almost every dock in the entire key is gone, he said. We're just getting started. Ladies and gentlemen, this labor force problem has been bad for actually for a few years. But now that these disasters have struck and you now got another potential one over the weekend, woo, I don't know what's going on. But is it me, or do you see how many things are going wrong since Trump been in office? And I mean, I don't mean to make things up, but I'm just telling you guys, I just see so many things have gone wrong, and he hasn't even been in there a year. And just look at how many things have gone wrong after the eclipse. The eclipse was probably maybe a little over a month ago, and it just seems like it's been one disaster after the next after the eclipse. As I stated to you before, this drug plague, this is going to be one of the major things that's going to economically cripple America. We're heading in that direction now. What do you do when you have 23 million people that are hooked on opioids and heroin in your country? They're going to bankrupt the place. Because right now they are taking from society and they're not making any contribution at all. But if they want to continue to call it a public health issue, you're going to see this labor force problem just completely implode after a while. That's what's going to happen. They ain't going to fix this, ladies and gentlemen. They're not. They're not going to fix this. And some of these companies are so damn racist, they don't want black labor. They'll sit there and just keep trying until they can find a needle in the haystack, white guy, to bring in. But hey, it's their wallet. Please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. And if you can, make a donation to my channel. Please do. Peace, family. Max, October 3rd, 2017. Government's attempt to fix could be worsening opioid plague. The opioid plague in America is real. It is lethal, and it may be killing the nice family that lives next door to you. More people are dying of opioid overdoses than died of AIDS in the height of the epidemic. The death toll is nearly twice that from global terrorism. The crisis is so bad that it seems to be raining needles. Last March in San Francisco, 13,000 discarded syringes were collected compared to 2,900 in March of 2016. Coroners are experiencing personnel shortages and equipment failures across the U.S. In Berkeley County, West Virginia, 2/3 of the emergency medication budget is now spent on Narcan used to treat overdoses. Doctors are getting blamed. More potent oral drugs became available, and guidelines for using them in chronic pain liberalized in the pain decade of the 1990s. So why are we having the plague now when medical opinion is shifting in the opposite direction? Between 1999 and 2011, annual opioid deaths nearly tripled from 8,048 to 22,784, and the trend is accelerating, probably not coincidentally. Participating in the U.S. labor force started to decline at the same time, dropping to an all-time low of 62.4% in 2015. While many people evidently have trouble finding a job, one building contractor said he has trouble finding workers who could pass a drug test and it did not have a criminal record. The decades-long war on drugs has obviously failed. Some recommended legalization to reduce the profits from illicit drugs. That option is being tried for marijuana in some states. The odor of maturing marijuana plants in rural Oregon, has become so pervasive that people worry about getting a secondhand high. The drug cartel's profit did suffer. So the bottom line is the heroin that's coming in from Mexico is supposed to be of a much purer quality, and it's cheaper than OxyContin. So of course, the cheaper the drug, the more you're going to draw people to it. Really, that's the bottom line. Legalizing what was formerly called the gateway drug obviously hasn't reduced heroin use. The new gateway is now said to be prescription painkillers, and the chief villain are claimed to be legal pharmaceutical manufacturers, doctors, and pharmacists. Because the multiplying regulations and physician prosecutions, patients who urgently need pain relief are being left in agony, but the overdoses continue to mount, mostly on drugs not stocked at Walgreens, such as heroin laced with fentanyl, an extremely potent synthetic opioid. What's going on? On the demand side, Americans are well indoctrinated by the sea of advertising about taking a pill for every ill. Nearly 70% of Americans take at least one prescription drug. And I'm not shocked. I am not shocked, y'all. I mean, America gives out probably billions in drugs every year to its citizens. And that's probably not, I'm probably undercounting it by saying that. It's outrageous how many drugs are prescribed in this country. As Paul Harvey predicted in his classic 1965 monologue, "If I Were the Devil," these trends would lead to metal detectors and drug-sniffing dogs in school. On the supply side, profits are enormous. The largest seizure to date of 63.8 kilos of powder fentanyl, plus 30,000 counterfeit tablets found in a tractor-trailer rig at a checkpoint near Yuma, Arizona, had a street value of $1.2 billion. Most of the fentanyl comes from China, a turnabout from the Opium Wars. In the 18th and 19th century, the British smuggled Indian opioid into China, selling 1,400 tons per year. In 1838, writes Dr. Marilyn Singleton, with devastating effects on the Chinese economy and political stability. And that's exactly what's happening here now. This, like I said, this plague is going to be one of the reasons why America will collapse economically. This will be one of the reasons why it will. And they can't blame it on all the usual stuff, because believe me, the money they're pouring into this drug plague exceeds what they're putting into Medicaid, Medicare, and even welfare. It has long superseded those things. America's rival and enemies clearly benefit from the deadly craving that kills and disables a large portion of its U.S. population while imposing huge cost on the economy, also benefiting the multi-billion-dollar treatment industry, including the manufacturers of drugs used in medically aided treatment. Where are the drug sniffing dogs in schools where children are known to be getting addicted? And if taxi drivers know where drug trades are happening, the police know too, and yet they continue. Huge money laundering operations by the transnational drug cartels continue for years in upscale Florida suburbs despite undercover penetration by police, while pouring billions into costly treatment methods with 1 year failure rate of around 90%. And see, I was reading that the average drug addict, when they go through rehab, 90% of them fall off the bandwagon within 1 week after they get out of rehab. So, really, is it worth pouring all that money into treatment? I don't know, but I know it's going to break this government. The government continues to provide free opioid prescriptions to Medicare and Medicaid enrollees. Some of them sell them on the streets. And the Massachusetts Attorney General shut down a network of sobriety-centric primary care-based clinics with an astonishing high success rate and imprisoned the founder, Dr., and I'm not saying that name. Last name is Kishore. I can say that. His alleged crime, ordering too many urine tests. Wow, they put him in jail for that. He went to, wait a minute, he went to jail for ordering too many urine tests. Oh my God. Is there any way that such massive international trafficking could thrive without some level of political protection? And is the government attempt to remedy the problem making it worse? This government can't make this problem better because it is far out of hand. It's millions and millions of people abusing drugs in America now. How do you get that under control? You really can't. You know, they're really just going through the motions and making it seem like they're doing something, but they're not putting a dent in this plague at all. And it's quite obvious that they're not. Please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. And if you can make a donation to my channel, please do. Peace, family. Done stories on criminal activity that drug addicts do. I haven't done these recently, but I did one where they were robbing banks, robbing pharmacies and supermarkets. And this is what happens when they have a drug habit. You know, sooner or later, they run out of money, they run out of the drug, and they turn to crime. And in many cases, these crimes are felonies because what they'll do is they'll break into homes looking for any item they can take to a pawn shop. And now the new thing is they go to, you know how sometimes they'll have an open house for a home that's up for sale? Well, what they're doing now, ladies and gentlemen, is they go through the medicine cabinet while they're touring through the house to steal the owner's medication. That's a new thing that they're doing now. So, I mean, they're coming up with more craftier ways to rob places. This is Oakville, Burlington, and you're going to see people up in Canada are doing the same thing they're doing down here in the US. All right, so this is a robbery, two men that robbed a pharmacy. Okay, and the pharmacy is called Shoppers Drug Mart. And this is the first guy, and these guys were together. This is the second. and they were after mainly opioids, narcotics, and they apparently got caught. And this is what they do. And these guys are going there armed, fully armed with guns, which make what they're doing a felony. So they can't even count this as a drug crime. All right, and here's robbers at a pharmacy called Atmore Pharmacy in Alabama. Let me go ahead and play this video.
Believe the recent pharmacy robberies in several area cities may be a part of a network of criminals targeting pharmacies. Two armed men stormed an Atmore Walgreens Tuesday night, just minutes before closing. This is surveillance video. The suspects you see there are carrying a tire iron and a gun, wearing dark clothes and masks. Atmore police say they forced the employees into an office, took prescription pills and cash before taking off.
Gosh. They were well equipped, well trained for what they was going to do. You can tell that.
I was just shocked. I was shocked, Yeah, because this don't normally happen around here, I was shocked.
That same store was burglarized back in May. Officials say this video is very similar to an armed robbery at a Walgreens in Grand Bay, May 17th. Detectives say it's likely the robbery in Grand Bay and this one in Atmore are connected as part of a network of criminals targeting pharmacies after hours and just minutes before closing while employees are present.
Okay. All right, and this article came out on the 25th of September, and I'm telling you, there's a whole bunch of these that come out every week from different pharmacies all around the country that get robbed. This is another one in Canada, Nova Scotia, and they're also, again, have a drug problem, and these junkies are going to these pharmacies and robbing it of the narcotics up there. And you can see some of the firearms that they retrieved from some of these pharmacy robberies. I mean, this is serious. And as long as the drug problem is going strong, these robberies will continue to go strong as well. Here's a guy that robbed CVS twice. And this is down in Richmond, Virginia. And here he is right here. His name is Jesse A. Riddell, 28 years old. He apparently robbed the same pharmacy twice. During his robberies, the robberies occurred on December 11th and December 20th, with Riddle robbing the store of $322 the first time and $102 the second time. The citation notes that Riddle admit to the robbery, stating that he wanted money to support his heroin addiction and to buy Christmas presents for his son. Well, he got 10 years in prison, and it don't look like that's going to be happening for this guy. All right, here's another robbery, and this one is, and this just to show you how worldwide these pharmacy robberies, this one is actually in Bahrain, okay? I'm going to go ahead and play this robbery. So you can see this is a worldwide problem with the drug addiction and the robberies.
عندنا محطة أزاد الصبور هم من ذلك بس والله العيد مرة ترى من اللي ضبط هو الدوريات اللي ضبط هو اللي ضيع عندك نظارة ايوه عندي. الله يسلمك. ايه اللي بتيجي اي حد بيتعالج الحته كلها محلات اصلا ممكن تكون هلا هلا حبيبي.
All right, so again, this just to show you, this drug problem is worldwide. It's worldwide. All right, here is one in Palm Beach, and this is September 22nd, 2017. All right, and you can see the guy right here. He's identified as Michael Prouty, 33 years old. And it don't look like they caught this guy, but he's wanted for a string of strong armed robbery in Boynton Beach. And it looked like it was 4:50 p.m. and he went in and robbed this pharmacy. And it looks like he took money from the cash register. Okay. And like I said, most of the time these guys are drug addicts, and that's why they're robbing the pharmacies in the first place. So, ladies and gentlemen, some things never ever change. And as you can see, the drug plague and the crimes associated with the drug plague is not going anywhere. I will leave the link to all of these articles in the description box. Please leave your comment and subscribe. And if you can donate to my channel, please do. Peace, family. Well, this is one I haven't done in a long time. There's an article on Gray Death that came on NBCRightNow.com, October 2nd, 2017. Gray Death. A new mixture of drugs now threatens the lives of first responders. I'm going to go ahead and play this video.
State to speed with the latest in high school sports. Tuesday night at 7 is your home for Prep Countdown on SWX. Our expert analysts break down all the stats for you. Join co-hosts Rob Jesselson and Kelly Hinsett, covering the biggest sports storylines and counting down to the action ahead with coach and player interviews and the week's top highlights. Prep Countdown on SWX, Tuesday nights at 7. Brought to you by Rustine RV, A1 Refrigeration, and more furniture for less. Health Alert, brought to you by Sunnyside Community Hospital and Clinics.
In your Health Alert tonight, 91 people die every day nationwide from overdosing on opioids like heroin, fentanyl, prescription painkillers, and even elephant tranquilizers.
Now, drug dealers are making a deadly mixture of these drugs that's being called Gray Death. As Caitlin Miller reports, it's so strong you don't even have to take it to be at risk.
911, 819 on Fire 5.
Mel Holtz knew he wanted to be a firefighter when he was just a kid.
I started early on, just kind of got hooked.
This is our monitor. This is how we're going to get patient vitals.
Now he's logged 14 years as a first responder. His department takes about 700 calls a year. From fires to traffic accidents and medical calls.
So what have you been taking today, sir?
In this training exercise, Holtz and his team work on another firefighter. But in the field, they're seeing more patients who are dealing with real overdoses.
The calls have changed. The drug use is seeing an uptick.
And there's a scary new drug that's putting first responders at risk.
Bottom line, my concern is that it's going to kill people.
James McCubbin, Deputy Missoula County Attorney, is prosecuting his first case dealing with Gray Death, a dangerous mix of drugs including heroin and some form of other opioid like fentanyl or carfentanil, a drug so strong it's used as an elephant tranquilizer.
You never really know what you're getting with this.
Even for scientists like Scott Larson, it is extremely difficult to identify and extremely dangerous.
And it's not just addicts who need to be concerned about Gray Death. It is so strong that it can be absorbed through skin and even through the air. Something as simple as washing your hands could put you at risk.
if there's a drug user with fentanyl in a public restroom or something like that, and then a small child can go in and just put their hand on the sink and get an overdose.
First responders are at especially high risk. A police officer in Ohio recently overdosed when trace amounts of gray death got on his uniform. Police detective Eddie McLean tells me departments across the region are changing their policies to keep their officers from accidentally overdosing.
It's scary enough to us that we're requesting our officers not conduct field tests on it.
And even small departments are stocking up on Narcan, a nasal spray that counteracts the effects of an opioid overdose. It's a last-line defense to make sure first responders like Mel make it home safe to their families. I'm Caitlin Miller, KHQ Local News.
Okay. You know,
Stay up to speed.
I hate when they say that. Oh, they want to make it home to their families. Everybody on the planet want to make it home to their families. I never met anybody that want anything less when they're on their way home. You know, it's not just first responders and cops that want that, and they make it seem like that's the golden phrase for them. I don't know. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so you can see this is actually Montana where they're seeing the gray death, but we know it's spread out in other parts of the country as well. So, gray death is very dangerous. It's a drug that you don't necessarily have to even take in order to feel the effects of overdose. If you remember, it's a mixture of heroin, fentanyl, carfentanil, and they call it gray death because it looks like concrete when you look at it. And this particular drug can pass through your skin. You can inhale it. You don't necessarily have to take this drug at all in order to feel the effects or even die from it. So, tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. And if you can make a donation to my channel, please do. Peace, family. Okay, here's an article that just came out September 29th, 2017. Declining birth rate in Wisconsin, U.S. could be good or bad. All right. Wisconsin birth rate declined in the past decade, and the national birth rate hit a record low last year, causing some to worry about workforce and economic instability, while others applaud a dramatic drop in births to teens. If people are having fewer children, there's going to be a smaller pool entering the labor force 20 to 25 years down the road, said David Egan Robertson, a demographer at UW Wisconsin Applied Population Laboratory. But much of the decrease in the birth rate is driven by a significant drop in births to teens, which most consider a good thing. Many millennials are entering the peak fertility years of their late 20s and early 30s. So they could boost the birth rate soon, but you know, millennials, they're not quite as interested in marriage and giving birth now. It's a positive thing, said Dr. Deb E. Rental, UW Madison Associate Professor. All right, so the state had 66,496 births last year, a rate of 61.3 births per thousand females ages 15 to 44, according to the State Department of Health Services. That's down from 72,757 births and a rate of 64.5 in 2007. Nationally, the rate dipped to 62.0 last year, a record low, with 3.9 million births. There were 4.1 million fewer babies born from 2008 to 2016 that expected based on previous birth rates, according to Kenneth Johnson, a demographer at the University of New Hampshire. At average of 1.85 births per woman, Wisconsin and the United States are below the replacement level of 2.1 births per woman, the level at which a generation can replace itself, Egan Robertson said. So we know that just from, the fact that 5,000 from a 1 year period, that you can't replace a population. You got to think about it, even 20 years from now, when those 5,000 people get of working age, they can't do every job out here in the US. That's not enough. They're going to have a big problem. That could cause problems in the workforce and the economy in future years, along with challenges to programs such as Social Security, he said. However, immigration offset slow native population growth in the US more than in places like Japan and parts of Europe. So the concerns aren't as great here. Yes, they are. That's why they're acting out. You can tell who got interviewed for this article. Okay, countries without active immigration are facing stagnant population totals, Egan Robertson said. Demographics say the Great Recession from December 2007 to June 2009 spurred the decline in the state and national birth rates starting in 2008. Birth rates typically go up after recessions end, but that hasn't happened this time, Egan Robertson said. This is likely because of the continuing drop in births to teens and women waiting longer to have children, he said. Oh, don't want to blame it on the genetics, huh? Because we know that's what it is. There were 2,807 births to females between the ages of 15 to 19 in Wisconsin last year, for a rate of 15.0 per 1,000 females that age. The rate has dropped 53% since 2007 and 66% since its peak in 1991. So they've been on a decline, ladies and gentlemen, for decades. This didn't just start. It really, from what I was reading, the decline really started in the 50s, and it went down from there. It's probably related, at least in part, to better access to effective birth control. The birth rate has been going up in Wisconsin among women in their late 20s and 30s. If this continues among the millennium, people born between 1992 and 2000, some say up to 2004, that could boost the birth rate overall. That's not going to do them any good, but let's go ahead. Older parents generally have more secure lives, which is better for children. The kids born will be more successful ultimately, so we could expect to see more robust workforce for that reason. Yeah, right. Okay. Nationwide, America is not having a lot of children, and it's a fact. It's been documented. It's a fact. It's a reason why many of these people are acting out and acting so crazy out here. And you can see other articles based on what I have told you about in the past. The white population on this earth is getting older.
okay? And all of the other populations on the planet are younger. And this is just another example of that. Map where Europe's population is moving, aging, and finding work. And the population among the Europeans is aging. And you see right here birth rates low and lower. So this is a phenomena that's going on nationwide. And right now, the Europeans are all up in arms because they're fighting all of the immigrants and migrants that are going there, and they're outnumbering the white European now. And of course, they're petrified of that happening in America because they, this is why Trump is coming up with all these travel bans and all that crap, because they're petrified of all that happening here. So ultimately, the population's got to change. It's inevitable. I mean, all of this paranoia is just not going to change a thing in the long run. But I'm just going to go ahead and, oh, there is one more I wanted you to see. Here's another one. Finland birth rate plummets to its lowest level in nearly 150 years. See, this is worldwide. This is worldwide. This is not just a U.S. thing. Okay, Finland's birth rate is continuing to fall and has reached its lowest level in 148 years. The number of children born has declined gradually over the last 6 years, with 52,814 babies born in 2016, a figure down by 2,658 on the previous year, according to Statistics Finland. So, of course, it's frightening to them. It's frightening, you know? So, this is a phenomena that's global, but it's not among all groups on the earth. It's mainly hitting your Caucasoids. No matter where they are in this world, they are the ones with the low birth rate, especially in Europe and the US and Canada, you know, Australia. Okay. Please leave your comment and subscribe. And if you can donate to my channel, please do. Peace, family.
Let's get some more of that good old American drug history. The greatest drug fiends in the world, an American opioid crisis in 1908. See, in 1908, ladies and gentlemen, Black people were sharecropping. Black women were working domestically inside the homes of white folks. And they were being picked up on bogus charges like vagrancy and not having a job and laughing out loud in public. You know, those real violent crimes that we're told we're doing all the time. While we were in hard labor, our white counterparts were getting high. They were working hard at getting high. But let's get into this great American white bread history. In this illustration of McClure magazine story, a woman left displays her needle marks. Oh man, oh man. Genteel women with easy access to doctors and drugs made up the majority of late 19th century addicts. She's gazing down at those track marks on her arms, ladies and gentlemen, working hard at getting high. The president, a swaggering populist from New York, was worried that a national crisis of opiates addiction was weakening America and diminishing its greatness that it never had. So, in 1908, Teddy Roosevelt appointed a handsome doctor with a handlebar mustache. Yeah, right. He probably looked like a monkey with a mustache. Hamilton Wright to be the nation's first opium commissioner. See, they had to do the same thing back then as they do now because so many of these caucasoids were just straight up junkies. While we were working hard, they were working hard at getting high. Americans, right warned, have become the greatest drug fiends in the world. Now, what's going on now? The biggest junkies on the planet are in America. America leads the entire world in drug addiction. See, ladies and gentlemen, these people just simply can't change. They just can't change. But let's get a little more into this great white bread history. The United States developed a pernicious narcotic habit in the decades after the Civil War. Anguished veterans were hooked on morphine. Now, aren't the VA veterans of today hooked on opioids? Some things never change. Gentile society women dosed up on laudanum and tincture of alcohol and opium. So they were mixing alcohol and opium just like they are today. The wonder drug was widely used as a cough suppressant and proved very effective in treating diarrhea in kids. So see, look, they were doping up their kids with opioids, talking about it's good for diarrhea. Opiates were wickedly addictive too. And as more and more Americans began abusing them, their control became a cause célèbre for progressive era reformers like Wright. The habit has this nation in its grip to an astonishing extent, he told the New York Times in 1911. Our prisons and hospitals are full of victims of it. It has robbed 10,000 businessmen of moral sense and made them beasts who prey upon their fellows. It has become one of the most futile causes of unhappiness and sin in America, United States. More than a century later, America has relapsed. The current opioid abuse plague is more lethal, with record number of fatal overdoses, public health experts note. But it's not the first time in U.S. history that the lax commercialization of legal opioids led to a national plague. But see, this time the plague is worldwide. It's just that America has the biggest junkies in the world because they got the biggest people that are the most full of shit in the world too. So it all makes sense. The little-known history of America's first experiment with narcotic and the federal government response to it are today a source of optimism for those who argue that tougher regulation and enforcement can bring the current crisis under control. Well, it's been 20 years of waiting for you to bring it under control. I guess, well, whatever. That is your problem. Faced with a late 19th century dope scourge, doctors, pharmacists, and federal law enforcement officials eventually managed to contain the country's first addiction plague. And look, here's their soothing opioid cough syrup for infants, drugging up the infants, working hard at getting high. Miss Winslow will relieve gripping in the bowels. Sounds disgusting. Instantly cure when colic. Soothing syrup for children. Yeah, just drugging up the children so they can shut the hell up. That's what it was for. And its active ingredients was morphine. Yeah, I guess it was popular. Too lazy to deal with your kids, so you drugged them up so they could leave you alone. Over the last 150 years of drug use in America, when a problem has emerged, the government has responded, said the DEA official Sean Ferrens, the former director of the agency's small museum on the ground floor of its headquarters near the Pentagon. I wish we wouldn't have to keep learning about the dangers of these drugs the hard way, he said. But ultimately, the turning point comes only when people really begin to see the damage we are doing to our society. Well, you must not be seeing that at all, because y'all been drug addicts since you've been on American soil. But let's move on. Lesser waves of opiates abuse, especially heroin, returned several times during the 20th century, especially in large cities, and most notably in the 1970s, ladies and gentlemen. Drug use all through the centuries. America famous for being the biggest druggies the world over. But let's move on. But the late 19th century was the only other era in U.S. history where the opiates addiction was truly a nationwide crisis, scholars said, afflicting urban and rural areas alike, up and down the country's social and economic strata. Then, as now, it started with drug manufacturers, doctors, and pharmacists not push us on the street. The advent of the hypodermic needle. The sticky sap of the opium poppy has been relieving pain and getting people high for at least 5,000 years. Ancient Sumerians called it the joy plant. The Egyptians traded opium throughout the Mediterranean, and itinerant Arab merchants probably introduced it to China in the 7th century. Just druggies worldwide. Opium became an engine of human commerce and conquest. English merchants, led by English East Indian Company, arguably the world's first modern drug cartel. The English, the first drug cartels. Okay, set up extensive colonial era opium supply chains that dominate sales in Europe and East Asia. When the Chinese emperors tried to stop them, the British waged the Opium Wars of the mid-19th century, occupying Hong Kong to make sure the drug markets remained open. Now, do you wonder why China is shipping over so much fentanyl and opioids to the US? Maybe it's revenge for those opium wars. But don't expect the Caucasoids to wake up. They just simply won't piece it together. So let's move on, ladies and gentlemen. English poets romanticize the recreational use of drugs. You know what? This makes me laugh because I read an article on heroin addicts saying they love the feeling of the high because it makes them feel like they're in love. And they romanticized about drugs. And by the time Thomas De Quincey published Confessions of an English Opioid Eater, Confessions of an English Opium Eater. Oh yeah, that sounds really romantic. In 1821, the British were importing tens of thousands of pounds of it per year. Historians said it wasn't until after the American Civil War that the use and abuse of opiates spread widely across the United States. Some of the first addicts were morphine-dependent veterans of the war, suffering from all manner of physical and psychological pain, an infliction known as soldier's disease. Boy, they come up with these elaborate names. I just don't know what I'm going to do. So in other words, your soldiers were a bunch of junkies. You know, you really think about it, the most animated these people ever were was when they were lynching black people in the Civil War. Other than that, the history is already written. They didn't work. White people did not work during slavery. Okay, look at them old, probably drugged up morphine looking soldiers here. Let's move on. Go take a bath. Okay. Morphine was invented in the 1820s, but sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I gotta get the phone. I'll be right back. You know, I love my family, but they have some rotten ass timing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on. Now, where was I? Morphine was invented in the 1820s, but it was the advent of the hypodermic needle that allowed the drug to be injected for the first time. The quick delivery to the bloodstream dramatically intensified the euphoric payload. Soon, syringes were being sold through the Sears and Roebuck catalog. You know, they also sold cocaine, ladies and gentlemen, in the catalog. Let's move on with DIY, do-it-yourself drug vials, according to the DEA's Ferns. Around the same time, you began to see an admonitory literature appear in medical journals saying, you need to be careful with this. Don't leave the syringe with the patient, according to David Courtwright, a leading historian on American drug abuse at the University of North Florida. For decades, opium, morphine, and other narcotics had been the active ingredients and an array of unregulated tinctures and cure-alls sold by neighborhood apocrisies. Itinerant peddlers or doctors making house calls. Oh, so the doctor came right to your house with the opium, huh? How convenient, ladies and gentlemen, working hard and getting high. Just as the contemporary opiate crisis appears to have a gender imbalance, with increasing proportion of women getting hooked. The 19th century addict was typically female and middle class, according to Courtwright, author, Dark Paradise. The history of opiate addiction in America. Women were prescribed opiates after childbirth. Oh my goodness. And to treat female problems, menstrual cramps. Yeah, while the black woman got nothing. Moving on. Many migrant workers from China who were hired to build roads and railroads and became addicts in labor camps and tenements of Western cities. Remember, they had the drug dens. In fact, that's what they're sitting in right now. The first drug control ordinance in U.S. history were issued in San Francisco in an attempt to stop the spread of opium dens, where the white clientele gladly visited with their $8. Unbelievable. Looked like a roach hotel, but moving on. Then 1895, German pharmaceutical giant Bayer came out with a new wonder drug, more powerful than aspirin, that worked phenomenally well as a cough suppressant. Its name was Hiroshik. It was hero shit. Meaning strong, heroic. But in the United States, it was marketed under a different brand named heroin. I like hero shit better. I'm calling heroin hero shit. Hero shit. Along with cocaine, it was recommended as safe alternative to morphine for addicts trying to shake their dependency and flooded the markets in many forms, tinctures, pills, even heroin, throat lozenges. These people are such junkies, man. So they had liquid form, pill form, and a throat lozenger. They're all loaded with with heroin. It possessed many advantages over morphine. The Boston Medical and Surgical Journal wrote in 1900 advancing claims with a chilling similarity to early advertisements for OxyContin. It's not hypnotic, and there's no danger of acquiring a habit. You don't have nothing on the streets now but a bunch of habit forming drugs, and this is why those addicts have grown over 20 years to 23 million in America. No danger of acquiring a habit. Yeah, right. The first drug kingpins. Around that time, the specter of the junkie and dope fiend began to appear as a stigmatized character in lurid newspaper accounts. The early 20th century was also a period of racial anxiety and growing hostility towards migrants. And didn't Trump just put another travel ban in effect? Still showing all that anxiety and hostility towards immigrants. Ladies and gentlemen, some things never change. Some things never change. Change is not what they can handle. That's why they're going to be crying on their way out. In their push for narcotics, crackdowns, crusaders like Wright and the Opium Commission played to fears that opium smoking white women would end up trading drugs for sex with Asian men. No, see, that's where your woman is a willing participant. They just don't want to believe their women will sleep with any man on this planet and don't give a damn. Don't want to believe it. The temperance movement wasn't just alcohol. It was also drugs that were ruining the moral temperament of Americans, said Lloyd Setterer, the chief medical officer of the New York Office of Mental Health and the author of a forthcoming book about the current opioid crisis. Again, Black people were sharecropping and on prison farms over vagrancy and laughing out loud in public. Our women were domestic workers and they were getting high. The US government began taxing opium in 1890, and the passage of the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906 forced manufacturers to disclose the content of their products, so consumers wary of the drug would know if it was lurking in their kids' cough syrup or not. You see them passing all kinds of legislation and, about the drug plague that's going on. And you can see they were doing the same thing back then. These people are like a broken record in history. 3 years later, Congress passed the Opium Exclusion Act, banning its import for the purpose of smoking. Okay, so it was okay to do as long as you weren't smoking it. People are silly. No wonder why you got a drug problem in 2017. Roosevelt sent Wright to lead an American delegation for the first International Opium Commission in Shanghai in 1909 and another gathering at The Hague in 1912 that produced the first global attempt to regulate narcotics. And I guess these were your people that were there at the conference. No wonder why you still got a drug problem. Wright continued to push for U.S. legislation over the objections of drug manufacturers, an effort that culminating the Harris Narcotic Act, Tax Act of 1914. It taxed and tightly regulated the sale and distribution of opium and cocaine-based products, the first broad crackdown in a century of American narcotics prohibition. Opiates remained available for short-term medical use. Isn't that what they're now saying? The doctors are trying to prescribe opioids only for 5 days now. Ain't working. But not to maintain addiction, and thousands of doctors and pharmacists were arrested under the Harrison laws, according to Setterer. A younger generation of physicians viewed opiates far more warily, issuing fewer prescriptions, said Courtwright, and made crucial differences in the prevention of new addicts. Isn't that what they're doing now? See, these people, they can't change for shit. You can see why their society is failing when it comes down to the drugs. They struggled with drugs in the past. They're struggling with drugs now. Oh, let's move on. Prohibition era gangsters like Arnold Rothstein, who trafficked in illegal heroin, would become the country's first drug kingpins in the 1920s, but the number of opiate addicts, Americans, would never be as large again until now. At the peak of the 19th century addiction crisis, roughly 300,000 Americans were probably hooked, according to Courtwright, despite higher estimates by Wright and other activists that were probably inflated. See, they couldn't get an accurate number then, and they can't get one now. Some things never change, ladies and gentlemen. You can count on these people never, ever changing. Today, the United States have 4 times as many people, but perhaps 10 times as many addicts. Stop overdoses, carry naloxone. You seriously put this billboard up? Oh my God. It's a billboard in Ohio. Moreover, 21st century dope, especially heroin, spiked with synthetic opioids like fentanyl, is more addictive than anything before, according to narcotics experts. The highs are higher. Isn't that what they like? As are the risk of lethal overdose. U.S. law enforcement agents have never had to confront criminal networks as sophisticated and well-financed as the drug traffickers who dominate narcotic distribution today. And the flow of American opioid continue over and under the counter. While new prescriptions for opioid-based drugs peaked in 2011 and have declined slightly, prescribing levels in 2015 were still 3 times that of 1999. The latest figures show dependent Americans who can no longer get the drugs from pharmacies are turning to illegal markets in greater numbers than ever before, or they're just holding up the pharmacy altogether, or anywhere that got drugs. That is the biggest difference between the 19th century crisis and the contemporary one, said Dr. DuPont, the former White House drug czar, who helped develop the first methadone maintenance program in the 1970s to treat heroin addiction. So treat drugs with drugs. Ladies and gentlemen, this drug plague ain't going nowhere. These high IQ people never fail to amaze me. Let's move on. Both plagues began with over-the-counter prescription of pain medication, but today illegal traffickers are far more able to step in as the government cracks down. The sea change is the illegal market, DuPont said. The move towards synthetic opioids like fentanyl will make everything much harder. The dogs can't sniff it. You can send it through the mail. It's very scary. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what this proves? It proves that America has never conquered a drug problem since she's been colonized. Okay? They had an inability to stop drugs then, and they have an inability to stop drugs now. But these are the ones with the high IQs. They are the ones that know everything. They are the ones that got everything. Even when you give them all kinds of advantages, they still can't overcome a drug addiction. Those same opioids are prescribed to Black people. But since doctors believe we don't feel pain, we didn't get hooked on it like white people did. So, ladies and gentlemen, drug fiends of yesterday are the drug fiends of today. Please tell me what you think about this great white bread American history, y'all. Please leave your comment and subscribe. And if you can donate to my channel, please do. Peace, family. An article that came out on Pain News Network September 29th, 2017. Fake fentanyl pills found in 40 states. Counterfeit painkillers and other prescription drugs made with illicit fentanyl have killed Americans in at least 16 states, according to a new report that found the fake and highly dangerous drugs have spread from coast to coast. We have documented the spread of counterfeit pills made with illegal fentanyl throughout 40 states. There is documentation that counterfeits made with fentanyl have killed Americans in at least 16 of those states. The other 24 states probably have deaths attributed to the counterfeits made with fentanyl. But because of limited awareness of the problem, those deaths may not have been investigated for counterfeit drugs, said the report by the Partnership for Safe Medicines, PSM, a coalition of pharmacy groups and other healthcare organizations. The report is based on a review of court records, statements by law enforcement and public health agencies, and news reports. And if you look at this map, what it's showing you in the burgundy color are the states where they found the counterfeit drugs across the country. And you can see it is a lot of states, including the state I'm in, New Jersey. And the brown indicates the actual deaths that occurred from the counterfeit drug.